Now, live from the Suncoast Hyundai Dealer Sports Desk, it's time for 10 Sports.
Welcome to 10 Sports. And back joining us, a 3-decade veteran of the Tampa Bay sports scene, Roy Cummings. Roy, let's lead things off with tomorrow's big announcement by the NFL, trading in the Lays for Mickey ears by bringing the Pro Bowl to Orlando. Why?
Well, I think this has to do with just the way things have come around in the NFL. You know, back in the day, going to Hawaii was a great trip for these guys. Sure. Everybody wanted to go. They wanted to be a part of it, take their families there. You know what? The guys that make the Pro Bowl nowadays, Chris, they're like you. They're rich. They got all kinds of money. They can go to Hawaii anytime they want. They can go anywhere they want. So you know what? Bring it back into this area of the country a little bit. Let the fans in this area see some of the Pro Bowls. I think you're going to start to see this thing maybe move around a little bit. Yes, this is a multi-year deal. They're looking at maybe 3-4 years, and then they might move it to LA. They might move it somewhere else. I think you're going to start to see this thing move around a little bit because they want to give the fans the experience of seeing these all-star games and more fans that opportunity.
Sure. Now, I have no room to talk in this regard, but Bucs cornerbacks are looking a little bit short at this point. Only one 6-footer, and that's Jonathan Banks. Does this pose a problem, especially in the NFC South, where a lot of the receivers are lanky and skilled?
You know, we were just talking about the Pro Bowl, Chris, right. And one of those players, Brent Grimes, is a 3-time Pro Bowler. In fact, each of the last 3 years he's made the Pro Bowl. So, no, I don't think the size is a problem here. I really don't. And let's look at Vernon Hargreaves. This kid had no trouble covering some of the big receivers when he was at the University of Florida. He covered some big guys there, obviously. He's used to this. They have skill. They have the ability to backpedal. They have the ability to cover these guys, yes. What they're going to force teams to do is they're going to force teams to do a little bit more of these jump ball situations. That's always going to be a difficult spot for a cornerback to be in. But these guys, if it's not a jump ball situation, they've probably got an edge on those receivers.
Now let's go to the ice. Roy, both of us talked to Steven Stamkos during the Lightning exit interviews, and he sounded like a guy who's calculated but doesn't know what he really wants heading toward free agency. Is this a facade?
No, I think it means he doesn't know what's going to happen. And I really think he doesn't. Look, I think his heart is here in Tampa, a big part of it anyway. I think there's part of him that probably wants to go back to Toronto and maybe play there if it wasn't such a crazy situation there. And you know, and I'm talking about off the ice. I mean, he'll be hounded by people, by fans, by the media. It'll be a real difficult situation for him. But I think there's a part of him that embraces that, wants to be a part of that Toronto scene. But I know there's a big part of him that wants to be here in Tampa, wants to play for this team, wants to win a Stanley Cup here. In essence, finish what he was brought here to do. And I think that's a big part of why he's a little conflicted right now. Plus, the other thing is the money. I think he knows that the Lightning are in a situation where they probably can't afford to give him the most money, but they're going to be close. And what does he do? Does he take the most money? And if it's just a little bit different, does he go somewhere else, or does he stay here, give the team the hometown discount? We'll see, but I think he's a little conflicted. You're absolutely right about that.
I really believe that the fact the Canadian dollar is weak at this point right now, no income state tax in the state of Florida, and a rising team like the Lightning are, I think he would be willing to give that hometown discount. I did ask him about it, and he kind of danced around that question. Now let's talk about Ben Bishop a little bit. I asked him, you know, the potential to be traded is there this summer. Is that something in the back of his mind? Do you think Steve Yzerman would be willing to trade the Vezina Trophy candidate?
I think he has to think about it. He really does, because here's the situation. You found out during the Stanley Cup playoffs and the Eastern Conference Finals that Andrei Vasilevskiy is good enough to take you to a very high level. He can play exceptional hockey when he has to. He hasn't done it over 82 games, but you know what? That's okay. He doesn't have to. He did it over a short span of time. You have to have some kind of belief. Here's the question. This is a team that has to bring in some scoring. Steve Yzerman talked about that as well. If they lose Steven Stamkos, they have even more scoring that they have to bring in. So, what's going to get you the most scoring? Is it going to be Andrei Vasilevskiy in a trade, which they have to think about, or Ben Bishop in a trade? They have to think about that too. So absolutely. Right now, Ben Bishop brings you more in return in a trade. That's why he's going to be on the block. He's going to probably, Steve Yzerman, going to probably shop both of these guys, put them both on the block, say, okay, what do you give me for this one? What do you give me for that one? And the one that brings the more in return is going to be the one who goes.
And on the horizon is expansion, potentially in 2017, and that means Ben Bishop or Vasilevskiy would have to be exposed to whatever expansion team is out there. The commissioner's saying he wants those expansion teams to be competitive right away. I think the move would have to be Ben Bishop in this case.
Well, it's only going to be one of those guys if one of them is gone. That's why I think this is a critical offseason. You move one of those goalies now, you don't have to worry about losing one of them to the expansion draft. You lose someone else possibly in the expansion draft, or they'll go get a goalie from another team. So, yes, I think that makes it an even more important offseason for the goaltenders because, again, you've got two pieces there, both of which can bring you something back in return that you need. Which one brings more? That's the one, how that decision is going to be made out.
Is it unfair comparison, Jonathan Drouin, a lot of people, just the small sample size we saw, want to say, okay, Steven Stamkos, you can go ahead and walk because we've got Jonathan Drouin waiting in the wings.
I'd be very careful about it. Don't forget it. Here's the thing about Steven Stamkos, folks. This guy scored more than 300 goals before he was 26 years old, okay? How many players in the NHL have done that? There's a handful, only a handful, and you know all their names because they're all in the Hall of Fame. Jonathan Drouin isn't at that level yet, and he doesn't kill penalties. Maybe one day he will. He doesn't play with as much jam as Stamkos does. Stamkos is a superstar already. Jonathan Drouin, he's a superstar maybe in the making. We'll see.
Roy Cummings, be sure to read him. Roy, where can we find you?
FanRag Sports Network right now. Today's Slapshot, today's Pigskin. Both of them covering the Buccaneers for today's Pigskin, the Lightning for today's Slapshot.
Always bringing you the best. Thanks to Roy Cummings for joining us.